and gentlemen, this is one of your hosts, Mark Stanley, joined by Kyle Knight. This is episode 2 of Nights at the Stanley Table. We're going to kind of follow the same format that we did last week until we establish one that really works. But otherwise, it is Wednesday, April 25th, about 1:40 p.m. My time, which makes it 11:40 p.m. or 11:40 a.m. on Kyle's side of the states. Kyle, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, chilling, school, work, same old,
Same old, same old.
same old, same old.
Well, we got a little bit to talk about today.
Boy, do we.
We got a lot of things going on, and we're gonna try to cut the show down from the hour and a half that we did the first time.
Too
So that
long.
way you don't have to listen to us blabber for so long.
Oh my god, that was so long.
So we're gonna see how it goes down today. So we're gonna start off the show talking about the NBA playoffs. So let's start with what we witnessed last night. So the Warriors, um, pretty much got out of the series unscathed. They finished off the Spurs 99-91 to win the series 4-1, and they're getting ready to face off against the Pelicans, who we'll talk about a little bit later. Uh, the Warriors pretty much didn't really show any signs of true weakness despite not having Steph on the court. Uh, Last night, they finished the Spurs off pretty handily without Kawhi Leonard. Leading scorers, Kevin Durant had 25 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Klay Thompson also helped out with 24, 5 rebounds and 4 assists. And then Draymond Green had a double-double with 17 points, 19 rebounds, and almost had a triple-double because he had 7 assists on top of that. Um, Aldridge led the scoring for the Spurs, dropping 30 and 12 rebounds. Patty Mills had 18, and Kyle Anderson and Manu Ginobili both had 10 off the bench. Um, the Warriors pretty much controlled most of the game, except for a late Spurs run that they had in the fourth quarter to kind of close the game down to as low as I believe 2 point deficit with about 2 minutes to go. But the Warriors eventually pulled away. So we have officially have our first official second round matchup set, where it's going to be the Warriors tipping off against the New Orleans Pelicans. So, first question for you, Kyle, is how concerned are we for the Warriors going into round two still with no sign of Steph? Outside of he did get some warm up shots in before game five, but he's still not going to be on the court for game time just yet.
Oh, he's not playing for game one?
He is still not projected to play.
Wow. Well, I figure, how nervous am I? Not as nervous since we did get past this round. I'm not as nervous, but the way the Pelicans are playing, it is kind of scary. But the Warriors aren't the Trailblazers. I look at matchups. When you look at matchups, um, even though Damian Lillard is a really great player, Drew Holiday's bigger and stronger than Damian Lillard. But Clay is bigger and stronger than Drew Holiday and is a better shooter than Drew Holiday. Then you got Rajon at the point. Rajon is a good defender, a good passer, not a scorer. But the big problem is going to be Anthony Davis and Mirotic. Anthony Davis and Mirotic, the force that they have as big men on the court is going to be really hard to stop. I think the Warriors' only chance is having JaVale somewhat slow him down. But on the Pelicans side, I don't see them having a chance like guarding Kevin Durant. I don't know who on the team could guard Kevin Durant.
You don't think
But
Miritich will get put on him with backup help from AD?
I don't. He might have backup help. I still don't think it's going to stop Kevin Durant ultimately from scoring because that's a really hard task. And the big deciding factor is going to be the bench play. I think the Warriors bench is going to have to produce, and the Pelicans bench is going to have to produce. Whichever bench wins the battle, I think that's who's going to win the game.
So for I guess first things first, for Saturday, who do you think is going to take game one? And then if you were to pick right now, of course this can change over the series, but your initial prediction, who wins the series, how many games?
I got the Warriors in game one, and I got the I actually have the Warriors winning in 6.
I'm going to go ahead and say Pelicans win game one. I think that the Pelicans are going to be well rested. Anthony Davis has already said he's motivated by wanting revenge for the sweep back in 2015 when the Warriors swept the Pelicans out of the playoffs. And I think that he's going to come out and they're going to come out motivated and they're going to try to hit the Warriors in the mouth right there on their home court. And I think it'll catch the Warriors by surprise, especially still being without Steph Curry on the court. So I'll say the Pelicans will take game one. I think this has the ability to go seven games, and I think AD is going to be a huge factor. But I'm going to go ahead and say Warriors in 7. But I would not be shocked if the Pelicans took this series either. But my official prediction, I will say Warriors in 7. So the other thing, on the opposite side of this game, the Spurs are now headed home for the off season. First of all, prayers and condolences for Greg Popovich, coach of the Spurs, who recently lost his wife in the middle of this series. So hopefully he will have some time to kind of wind down and process everything that's going on with his life. Hopefully everything's okay with him. But another person in this kind of Spurs situation drama, Kawhi Leonard, who we did not see at all this series. Kawhi Leonard had a lot of different rumors swirling him all season long, whether he was hurt or whether he was cleared or whether he wasn't cleared or if he was, but he was choosing not to play. There's a lot of rumors and a lot of stories swirling around, so he ended up not playing a game at all in these playoffs, and I feel like if he had, it would have drastically changed the outcome of this series. I think if Kawhi Leonard's on the court and Steph is not, Kawhi Leonard could have turned this series completely around for the Spurs. But of course he didn't play. So the rumor going around is that there's a possible chance Kawhi may not come back to play in a Spurs uniform next year. Either he gets released or traded, probably more likely traded. But there is a thought that he may not put on a Spurs uniform next season. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think he's going to come back. I'm not sure where he's going to go, but I don't think he's going to come back. I don't know if they want. I'm sure they would want him back. I don't think he wants to come back. The Spurs are getting old. I don't think just him on the team they're going to be winning a championship anytime soon. So I think he's not coming back next season.
Also, for anyone listening, I know what you're thinking. You're going to shout out Lakers, Lakers, Lakers. Listen, the Lakers can't have everybody, okay? Lakers fans, you think that you're going to get
Lakers
LeBron.
want LeBron. Lakers want Paul George. Like, y'all can't have everybody.
Yeah, you want Paul George, you want LeBron, you want Russell Westbrook. You know, you want everyone who leaves their team. You can't have everybody. So you got to live with those decisions sometimes. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes about this offseason, whether he asks for a trade or whether he decides to stick it out with Pop, and we'll just have to see what happens there. So to move on to the Pelicans. So the Pelicans swept the Blazers 4-0. I mean, it was I believe a 4-5 matchup, I want to say. I think. And no, it wasn't. I think it was a.
Oh, it was a 3-6.
3-6. It was a 3-6. That's right. So, first of all, are we shocked at how dominant the Pelicans were this series?
I'm not gonna lie. I was somewhat shocked. Oh, I didn't. I wasn't shocked that they won. I was more or less shocked that they swept them that bad. It was a 4-0 sweep. I thought Dame would produce a lot more than he did. I thought I know CJ played actually pretty good, but I thought that Damian's supporting cast would play a little better. I remember in the regular season they were on like a 22 game win streak.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And they were looking like they were going to be a team to beat, but then postseason came, and Pelicans just shut all that down. So, I mean, I wasn't so much surprised that the Pelicans won, just that it was a 4-0 sweep.
Yeah, I agree with that. I expected the Blazers to make this a series. It's weird kind of saying it like that because the Blazers were technically the favorite, being the 3 seed, but a sweep was definitely not on my mind. I expected this to possibly go anywhere between 6 and 7, but I mean, obviously it didn't. Uh, the Pelicans just overmatched the Blazers on all sides of the ball, and they played real hard physical basketball, and they ended up winning the day. So they're gonna get ready for a date with the Warriors on Saturday, which will probably be the toughest postseason series that they'll probably encounter so far in their young playoff history with this team, and especially with Anthony Davis. So that'll be an interesting series to keep our eyes on as well.
Right.
So then we're gonna move on to my favorite team right now in the East, trusting the process, Philadelphia, who closed out their series on the Miami Heat, winning 4-1 after beating the Heat at home 104-91 in Game 5 last night. So basically, just to run that down, the one of the best we've seen in our lifetime, Dwayne Wade. He had 11 points, so he wasn't as dominant as he did in that game where he turned back the clock to help them win a couple of days ago. Uh, so he was, I believe, their fourth leading scorer. Yep, fourth leading scorer. Kelly Olynyk dropped 18. Uh, Tyler Johnson dropped 16. Garand dropped 15, and then Justice Winslow had 12. So they had a lot of scorers as far as people getting in double digits. It's just it wasn't quite enough because JJ Redick basically had a fantastic game, dropping 27 points. Joel Embiid had a triple double. He dropped 19, or no, a double double. He dropped 19 and 12 rebounds. And then Covington also had a good 10 points to assist. And even Marco Bellinelli had a good 11 points as well. Uh, and then Ben Simmons, of course, having another double double, dropping 14 and 10. So it's not quite his triple double performance that he's had over the last couple of games, but it's still definitely enough to get it done in a game where you end up winning by 13 points. So the Sixers are now waiting to see their next opponent since the Warriors and Pelicans are the only series that's been set in stone so far. But one thing I do want to mention, Dwayne Wade dropped 11 points, and a lot of people are saying this very well could be Dwayne Wade's last game. What do you think about whether this could be the last time we see Dwayne Wade lace up his shoes, or this could have
First of
been?
all, back to the Sixers. Free Meek. Thankful he's out.
Yes, Meek Mill was released in probably the biggest social media craze I've seen in a while. He got released from prison and got picked up by the owner of the 76ers and got helicoptered over, gave him a Sixers jersey, and he had to sit front row with Kevin Hart and a few other people to watch the Sixers close the series. It was crazy. Free Meek. For once, free insert hashtag free somebody actually got somebody out of prison. It was dope. It was an awesome moment on social media and good for him. But yeah, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, Dwayne. I'm not sure. Dwayne's kind of hard to read sometimes. Uh, but the way he said it in the press conference, he said, "I'm not making a decision now." Um, when he said that, I'm not making it in Philadelphia. It makes me kind of think that he eventually is gonna just hang it up. Because if you think outside of the NBA, he has other things he could venture off to. He has two kids, by the way. Zaire Wade, I forgot the other one's name, but he has two kids. He's married to Gabrielle Union. Um, he has a spot waiting for him if he wants to continue with like and ESPN analyst. So I think he can't. I don't think he's gonna win another finals or even make it to another finals. So I think this could be the right time. I think he might end up retiring this year.
I think no one would blame him if he decided to call it a career. I mean, the only thing he could have done to jump and get a ring is maybe stay with the Cavs, but obviously, to him that was a toxic environment, and to the rest of the team at the time it was a toxic environment. So he said it'd be better to just to come home and do his and play his game the way he's always played it, and then he'll probably play as long as his body allows him to do so. And if this is it, then this is it. And uh, he was a marvel to watch, even if he wasn't always liked by all the fans, especially during the early 2010s during the evil villain Heat era. But he was definitely a very bright spot in this game. He did a lot, both on and off the court, and so I think the Basketball Hall of Fame will be waiting for him not too long after he retires, and also well deserved.
I think he's like 20th or he's like top 10 in playoff all time scoring list. So that was a pretty good accomplishment.
Also true. Also true. All right, so we're gonna move on to the future, and by the future, I mean tonight. So we got four new matchups going on here. Two of them are going to try. Two of them are basically involving teams trying to gain a one-game edge. The other two, one of them is trying to close the series. The other trying to stay alive. So we've got Washington going to Toronto tonight, Indiana going to Cleveland, Utah going to Oklahoma City, and Minnesota going to Houston. Washington and Toronto and Indiana and Cleveland are both tied at, or are both series that are tied at two apiece. So, Toronto and Washington, a little bit closer series than I've thought so far. But how are you feeling about this one, and what are you thinking about how this one's going to shape up over the next
First of
at
all,
least two games?
first of all, we have two games here that is up for grabs and two games that, in my mind, are pretty much over. Um, Washington and Toronto, that could be anybody's game. I feel like since Toronto's at home, I feel like they'll win this game. I feel like whoever's at home for that series is going to win. That's how I'm feeling. For the Indiana and Cleveland series, that's a little bit more complicated, you see, because Cleveland loses at home. They went on the road. LeBron doesn't want to go out the first round. I already know that. I feel like Cleveland's going to win this game. I feel like they're going to win this game. They might, but I feel like ultimately they're going to slip up and they might lose in seven.
Hmm.
That is what I'm thinking. It may be bold, but
So you're saying Pacers in
LeBron doesn't
seven?
have the supporting cast, huh?
You're saying Pacers in seven?
Yes.
You know what? You know what? I'm agree with you. I think I think the Pacers have definitely played games that were well enough where if a couple of things had gone their way in the final minutes of a few of these games, they could have very well been up 3-1 going back to Cleveland. But as we saw, it's 2-2. They just haven't quite figured it out yet, but they definitely have shown that they have the weapons available uh, to beat the Cavs if they really, really need to. And I think that this series could very well go 7 games, go back to Cleveland, and LeBron could probably still drop 40 points. But if he doesn't have any support and the Pacers continue to play together and well as they have been over this series, they might be able to shock the world here. Now, we got OKC and Utah. Utah up 3-1 in this series, heading back to Oklahoma City. Uh, uh, Pretty much a series that nobody's really expected to go the way it has, even though technically Utah is the higher seed. There was a three-way tie for fifth, sixth, and seventh place. So don't read too much into the rankings in this spot, but um, OKC on the ropes, heading back home. Ricky Rubio has been uh,
Cookie
taking.
Monster.
He's been a cookie monster, basically getting steals left and right, making Russell Westbrook look silly. Um, man, Joe Ingles, he's just dogging Paul George, disrespectful. Did you watch the last game?
Yes,
Did
I
you did
did,
you
and I saw
see?
him hit that three and kind of gesture at Paul George.
Man, I have never seen such disrespect. He hit the three and then got right up into Paul George's face, and then Paul George tried to like push him off, and he was still there, running back down the other side of the court, right in his face still. I was surprised. First of all, he didn't get a text. Second of all, that Paul George didn't like fight him, cause man, that was disrespectful. But I loved it. One of the things that our listeners will pick up on is unless you're a player that I just dislike, I'm usually a huge fan of disrespecting somebody on the field. On the field. So if you cross somebody up and stare at them and hit a shot, or you hit a big three and you stare somebody down, or you cross somebody up and then dunk and then step over them, I'm all for it. If you can smack talk and back it up, I am a fan of you. As long as I like you as a player, which is subjective, but every fan is subjective. We're all fans here anyway. But man, when Joe Ingles did that stare down, I almost hopped off my bed. I was just I was laughing so hard, and I was just loving every second of that. And the
This
fact that
series is the best.
Utah could possibly knock the Thunder out of the playoffs tonight is huge. With all the expectations that went on OKC after they got Carmelo and after they got Paul George, with all the expectations, and they may not even get out of the first round. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you take it to effect. Russell focusing more on Ricky Rubio scoring and Carmelo not hitting shots. Steven Adams not really doing anything.
Let's also not forget the rookie of the year who continues to go off,
Yeah,
or the potential rookie of
exactly.
the year.
So when you have Utah's best players playing better than Thunder's best player, and then you have the Utah Jazz have better teammates, they're playing better team basketball than the Thunder, then you have a 3-1 lead.
So here's my question to you: does Utah close out the series tonight?
Yes,
They do. So you
they
have them
close.
moving on.
Yes, they're moving on
I think
tonight.
I think OKC lives another day on this one. I think they bring it to 3-2, and then the series will go back to Utah, and we'll see what happens from there. Last
If that
one.
happened, I don't think they're going to win in Utah. Utah's blown it out each time.
Well, the one thing that's always the scariest in sports is the team that's got their backs against the wall. So we'll have to see. And then lastly, we got Houston and Minnesota. Houston's been pretty dominant this series outside of one game where Minnesota's shooting was just off the charts
First
when
of all,
they played at home.
I have to give a round of applause to the Rockets. A 50-point quarter. What are the Timberwolves doing? What are they doing?
You would think with Tibbs as head coach, their defense would be the most stressed because they really have no real shooters on that team, which
Exactly.
is why this series has been as lopsided as it has. So
In
I'm
that third quarter, James Harden scored more than the Timberwolves' whole team.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Uh,
And if you're trying to compete in a series, you can never have games like that. If you have one player outscoring your entire team in a quarter, that's just it's never gonna win you a basketball game. Or
no.
it's not gonna win you any game, any sports game. Period. If one person is scoring more than your entire squad, it's never gonna you're never gonna win a game like that. I mean, I might be preaching Captain Obvious over here, but it's just that's how it is. Let me see if I can find out how much it was he scored in total. He dropped 36 points um, on that in that game. So
Yeah.
yeah, and as far as the Timberwolves go, they had a few people in double digits, but obviously it wasn't enough. So if they can get another double digit performance from a lot of their players off of their bench, they may be able to stand a chance. They just have to find a way to make sure that they won't stop James Harden, but if they can contain him, they have a shot. They won't win this series though. I think Houston wins in 5. They'll close it tonight.
Yeah, and they're playing at home. They're closing it tonight.
I think so. I think it's just the Rockets have too much shooting ability, and Minnesota doesn't have nearly enough to make this any more of a series. I think.
I will give Karl Anthony Towns some more credit. He did have 22 points last game, but they just don't have enough shooters.
Yeah, they just don't have enough shooters to compete, and it's shown every game but one. So I think the series comes to a close tonight. And last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit of NCAA basketball. Today media has reported that there is a potential rule change that could be in the works that would not only allow or re-allow high schoolers to go straight to the pros, but also there's going to be a potential crackdown on one and done systems and coaches who cheat. Would if you are found out to be cheating, the NCAA would find a way to ban you for life from coaching. So I'm gonna let Kyle. I'll let you kind of take over on this one. I've kind of set the stage with the attempted rules and things like that. How are you feeling about all these changes before next basketball season?
Man, I know high school players to come are not going to be happy about that if they do change the rule because they worked so hard so they could get to college and leave the first year. Now they're finding out that they might have to stay 2 to 4 years extra, right?
Mm-hmm.
It they're not they're not having it. I don't think they're having it. First of all, you guys remember when players used to come out of high school. Then they changed that rule to make sure that they had to do a year in college to get an education. Now they're going to make it more years uh, to get more education and to prevent this, I guess.
But I
To
also
pre-
know, but
prevent
part of the
cheating.
rule is actually letting 18-year-olds come straight from high schools to the pros, because
Yeah,
they
no.
feel like if you're only going to go for 1 year and you're already not paying attention to the education that you'd be getting because you're focusing on getting to the NBA and not being in there for longer than a semester or maybe 2 semesters, then like I guess people are starting to realize what's the point of forcing you to go to college if you're not even gonna, in
Mhm.
parentheses here, go to college.
Right, right, exactly. Um, I mean, the funny part is the teams that were caught with this cheating are not even the top teams that in college basketball. Louisville, they had a terrible. They were not doing anything this season. Uh, Arizona did good. Arizona did good. They ended up losing. What was that like early in the early rounds, right, of March Madness, right?
Hmm.
So these teams were not even the teams that won. So they basically did that for nothing and ruined it for everybody.
Well,
Ruined it.
Louisville. To be fair, their stuff came out from the probe that the FBI did, which I think went back to 2013, which was when Louisville was actually kind of one of the upper echelon teams in the country.
But
Uh,
they still didn't win the national championship
well, they did. That's why they took it back.
in 2013.
I think it was 2013 that they won it.
I
No,
don't think
it
so.
might have been a couple years before that. Either way, they won a national championship and it was revoked because of the FBI probe. So like the players still have the ring, but the banner is no longer up in the school. It was the Kevin Ware year.
Yeah, I remember Kevin Ware when he got injured.
Yeah, that was the year that they won it. But that was around the time when a little bit after that is around the time when they found the probe. I think 2013 was the year that they cited in their findings. But how do you feel generally about the NCAA revising the rule for 18-year-olds being potentially having the ability to be eligible for the draft straight out of high school instead of having to go to 1 year of college that they probably won't pay attention to?
I mean, for me, it's not gonna make any much of a difference. I'm still gonna watch the NBA. I'm still gonna watch college basketball. I know the basketball players may not feel the same way, but as a fan, from a fan's perspective, um, I don't have any type of problem with it. We already do it when it comes to college football. They have to stay longer. They're not coming out the first year. So, and we still watch the NFL regularly and just wait for them to come out. So I don't really necessarily have a problem with it. Um, if they don't pay attention, then they can't play. If they don't pay attention to school, they can't play. Simple as that. But uh, they have plenty of years to not work or do anything but play basketball. So I do not have a problem with it whatsoever. If they happen to uh, change when the basketball players can come out of college, but after that, I don't want them to change it again, make it go back down to 1 year or anything like that. Like if you're gonna change it, just change it for good.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to another topic. Today, like I said, is Wednesday, April 25th. Tomorrow, April 26th, Thursday night at 8 p.m., we have the NFL Draft. So, like I said, round one begins tomorrow night live from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, not Dallas. That's my little pet peeve about things like that. Since I live here, but yeah, so it will be in AT&T Stadium, Jerry World, as we often call it, and it's going to be a lot of lights, a lot of flashing lights, a lot of moments will be made, and a lot of lives will be changed. So we're not going to talk about the whole draft. We're just going to talk about the top five, just because that's going to be where all the eyes.
Sorry, I had to do it.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. In this, I may throw some music in there, to lead us into it when I'm editing it. So we'll see. But yeah. So top five picks for tomorrow night will be our annual usual top three pick, which is the Browns. We'll have the number one overall pick for the second year in a row. The Giants will be pick number two. Jets three, who traded up. They traded up to acquire the number three pick from the Indianapolis Colts. The Browns will be picking again at four, who acquired that pick from the Texans, and the Broncos will round out the top five at five.
Mark,
Um,
let me ask you this. Let me
mm-hmm.
ask you this. I know you're getting to your thing.
Hmm?
From your perspective, since you know more about football and the people coming out of college, who do you have going in the top five and why?
Okay. So my friends and I, we actually are we started doing a thing where we do a mock draft every year. Now it's not nearly as good as NFL mock drafts from like actual journalists who are paid to do this type of thing, but it's just our kind of opinions. And there's one pick that I'm absolutely sold on is going to happen. The rest of it is kind of up to debate. So I have the Browns. Taking Sam Darnold first. I'm just going to go with the general consensus. I don't like Sam Darnold. I think he was overrated. I think the fact that he led the FBS in turnovers last season is or should have been a red flag for a lot of teams. But apparently, everyone thinks that he's NFL ready. He still has a phenomenal arm. Um, I'll give him that. But I didn't see as much footage from him, but from what the things that I did see, especially seeing the Cotton Bowl game last year, since I worked that event, um, I was not impressed to the point where I think he should be number one pick. I could still see him, like, I won't say anything drastic, like he shouldn't be in the first round, but being picked at number one is not something that I think he
Deserves.
should be. I won't say deserves, but I'll say he should be. But I still think the Browns will go ahead and take him. And then I'm going to go ahead and say at number two, the Giants will take one of two people. I'm going to say who I picked, but I can also say his alternative. I think the Giants could pick up Saquon Barkley, who
Ooh, Saquon.
dazzled at the draft and also, or not dazzled at the draft, dazzled at the combine, and then had an incredible pro day. This man is actually probably looking like what might be the draft's biggest, not biggest, but the best athlete, best pure athlete that might be in this draft. He is insane, and congratulations to him as well because I think he also just had a baby either yesterday or 2 days ago. So congratulations to him. He's a brand new father, and then he's going to get drafted about 2 days later. So there's that.
Side note. So what do you think about if it's Saquon, Odell, and Dez?
I think it's going to be very hard for the Giants to miss expectations next year. They've been hyped before with teams that thought that a lot of people thought would at least be shoe-ins for the playoffs, including not last season but the season before. Uh, but there's in playoffs and then even further than that. But I think offensively on the offensive side of the ball, they'll be insane. They should be insanely scary. Now the question is, will the defense be able to keep up with that? Which I think, if they have at least an average to above average defense, they'll be scary. They'll definitely be scary next season, and they could definitely contend for the East, which, as we know, usually has a different winner every year. So they'll definitely contend with Philly for making a run at winning the East next year. Now, let's go to the same stadium, but the other team. Jets. This is the only one I'm sold on. Baker Mayfield will probably be a Jet. The way I've
Good.
seen how he's handled interviews with the Jets, I've heard he's probably studied that playbook more than he studied any other team. I think that the Jets are going to take Baker at number three.
Really?
That is the one pick that I am absolutely for sure this is most likely going to happen. I think Jets take Baker Mayfield at three. And you may have your separate feelings about Baker. Personally, I was not a fan of. Well, okay, I grew to love his arrogance more. Like at first, I didn't like him because of his arrogance, which sounds hypocritical of me, based off of what I said in the NBA. But as I watched him and as I watched him back it up, I built a respect for him. So I actually do hope that he has a successful career in New York and on a team that desperately needs some signs of success after being in the bottom for so long. Pretty much since 2010, the two good Mark Sanchez years where they went to back-to-back conference championship games and lost. So I hope he does well there. And then with the Browns' second pick, I have them picking up Bradley Chubb. And then the Broncos basically go quarterback again because this quarterback experiment has yet to work since Peyton Manning is retired. So they're going to go, I believe, Josh Allen from Wyoming. So
Why?
they'll be able to have another quarterback to take to QB camp since the quarterbacks that they've had, Simeon and Paxton Lynch, haven't quite, I guess, yielded the growing results that maybe John Elway has really looked for just yet. So he'll probably draft another quarterback to basically tighten up the QB race and maybe give the other two a sense of urgency for their jobs, and also to serve as the backup that they'll have in their back pocket in case they need them.
Okay.
So another thing is, my question would be do any of these teams trade down? I think the Browns could trade down from their fourth pick to acquire more picks. I think it's very possible. The Browns have always been known to be definitely heavy dealers with any draft picks that they have to try to accumulate more. Now, whether they hit with those picks is another story because they usually don't, but they have been known to move around. So I think they could definitely use the first pick and then deal the fourth pick for to maybe backload some picks either later on in this round or in the future. Uh, so I think if I were to pick one team in this top five that I definitely think could possibly end up trading down to get some more, it'll either be the Browns are my for sure pick, or maybe even Denver. Anything to add on to what I said?
Well, I haven't really been keeping up with the college football scene and a lot of the NFL draft stuff. So right now, all I could say is go Raiders.
For me, Kyle and I are both Raider fans. As long as the Raiders draft Roquan Smith at number 10, I'll be happy because I want that linebacker from Georgia to help Khalil Mack. So that's how I feel about that. And yeah. And maybe if I'm lucky enough, I will try to do a vlog from the draft if I get to go either on Thursday or if I can do it before work on Friday or Saturday since I'm working the game then, or since I'm working the draft then. And then we'll add that to our YouTube channel and we'll see how that does. Like I said, we're trying to shorten this show, so we got one more segment that we're gonna hit, and that's gonna be our wrestling segment. Starting next week, hopefully we will have a full structure. So hopefully we'll be able to talk about sports on like Mondays, and then we'll be able to talk about wrestling on Wednesdays after Raw and SmackDown, and then our Flashback Friday segment. So that way on Wednesdays we can talk about SmackDown and Raw, and then in this case we can talk about the greatest Royal Rumble results, things like that. So this week was kind of a filler week. I don't want to say it was a go home show, even though it kind of was. Because, and for those of you who don't know, non wrestling fans, a go home show is basically your last show before a pay per view. But this pay per view, Greatest Royal Rumble, it doesn't feel like it's necessarily canon to the general storylines. It just feels like it's an event that WWE's having. For those of you who remember Beast in the East a couple years ago, and things like that, it just feels like it's an event that's just kind of happening just because they can do it. But other than maybe a few titles changing, it shouldn't really have any major effect on the overall storylines. Since Backlash is also, which is the actual pay-per-view, Backlash is going to be the week after. So, let's first talk about Raw. So, Raw.
I didn't watch these, by the way, so.
So I'll fill you in, and I'll just kind of get your opinion on these, and I'll kind of talk about how my opinion. So Raw opened. Brock Lesnar made his first return to TV since winning at WrestleMania and shocking everybody. And he basically, Paul Heyman came out with him and said, I told you so. I told you Brock was going to win, and then Brock's going to win again in a steel cage at Greatest Royal Rumble on Friday. And, this is going to be a spoiler. So, yeah, he's going to win. And Roman Reigns came out and basically said, you know, you're right, Paul. I may not get back in one piece after facing Brock Lesnar in a steel cage, but I will come back with the title. So, eh, I just want this feud to be over. I'm done watching Roman Reigns. I'm done watching Brock Lesnar. Um, I know I'm not the only one with this opinion because the crowd was incredibly not into this at all. Um, I think it was the St. Louis was where Raw was last night, and they weren't into a lot of things, but this definitely they were completely apathetic to. So um, I'm just ready for this feud to be done. I'm ready for just put the belt on Roman so we can all suffer through it and just send Brock back to UFC like he was supposed to. And everyone can move on with their lives instead of the main storyline with the main title, the most important title in WWE, being handicapped by a storyline that they just want to shove down throats. But I'm not going to give it any more time than it deserves. So that's all I'm
Seems here
talking
you're
about that.
very irritated.
I'm very irritated. I'm one of many wrestling fans that are irritated by this whole storyline and the fact that it's not over yet. The fact that we're still talking about Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar when that was supposed to be over at WrestleMania. But it is what it is. Next thing, Bobby Roode made his in-ring debut on Raw after being traded to Raw from SmackDown. Lost in a match with Elias due to a roll-up, which I think is a bad sign for Bobby Roode. It kind of shows he may not be as important as he just was on SmackDown. In SmackDown he was right in the middle of the United States title picture, and now on Raw it looks like he could be potentially drop down to the lower mid card. So we'll kind of have to see how that goes. And it's kind of a shame for Bobby Roode because he's steadily been losing momentum since he's been pulled up on the main roster. I remember back in NXT, he was one of the most over people in the company, even as a heel, because he had a song that was so catchy that everybody sang it, and it was wonderful. And now barely anyone does. And it's just kind of a shame that booking has kind of put him in that position, as well as himself. You know, he's just not as over with fans as he used to be. But it is what it is. We'll see how they book him going forward. Um, then we had Woken, Matt Hardy, and Bray Wyatt beat the Ascension in basically a squash match. Well, not a squash match, but it was basically an enhancement match to get Bray and Matt ready for their tag team title match against The Bar, Cesaro, and Sheamus at Greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. And it is what it is. They won, and they're making you look forward to Friday. Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre defeated Titus Sports Worldwide in an actual match to follow up from last week. Drew McIntyre cut a pretty good promo. Good to see him on the main roster. Interesting to see what they. I'm interested to see what they do with him going forward. I'm iffy about the pairing with Ziggler, but I'm not gonna jump on it or jump against it just yet. I'm gonna give it a few more weeks to see how I feel about it, but we'll see. He definitely cut a great promo today, so we'll have to see how that goes. Uh, I guess Chad Gable is a babyface now. He was a heel on SmackDown when he tagged with Shelton Benjamin, but I guess now he's a face. He had a match with Jinder Mahal, beat him. Um, yeah, no feelings on that. We'll see how that goes. and then we and then we had Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley in his second in ring match since returning to Raw.
Bobby's back.
Bobby is back, and he faced off against Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who were put in this match earlier the night after the Sami and Kevin show. They kind of got on Kurt Angle's nerves as he was their guest, and so he booked them in this match. And basically, Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley ran over Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. There were some great gifs that came out of this match where Braun Strowman literally runs over Kevin Owens like a train and basically runs him into the barricade. So that was some good stuff there. But it is what it is. Um, Baron Corbin attacked No Way Jose. Don't care about this at all. Don't care about Baron Corbin. Um, Intercontinental Champion Seth Rollins and Finn Balor defeated the Miztourage. I thought this was kind of funny because the Miztourage over the course of the show went to Seth Rollins and said, "Hey, the Miz is on SmackDown, so we want to be part of you now." So they had Seth's shirts on first, and Seth said, "Nah, I don't need y'all." And then they had Balor Club shirts and tried to appeal to Balor, and Balor was like, "Nah, I don't need y'all either." So they came out and Miztourage lost, and it is what it is. I'm not really interested, but definitely interested to see how this story between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. I'm sorry, I'm yawning. I don't know why I'm so tired.
I'm tired too.
But yeah, between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, I'm interested to see how they continue telling that story. And then this was interesting. So I'm gonna kind of talk a little bit about the Greatest Royal Rumble before I go to SmackDown, because it has to do with this main event as well. So in an effort for viewers can't see this, but I'm doing the little apostrophe or the quotation marks with my fingers. In an effort for quote unquote equality, they had a 10-man tag team match with guys last week in the main event. So they decided to do a 10-woman tag team match in the main event tonight, which is all fine. But what they did during this match is what caused controversy. So Kyle, I'm gonna fill you in. So as you know, the Greatest Royal Rumble is in Saudi Arabia, right?
Right.
So Saudi Arabia has very, very strict rules against women in the country, and due to that, there are going to be no women competing at the Greatest Royal Rumble event on Friday. I don't even think they're going to be traveling to Saudi Arabia at all. So that's kind of been the biggest controversy about this is WWE continues to champion this idea of women's revolution and women's rights and women's equality, but then they're taking money from a country to do a show where no women are allowed, and it just kind of seems backwards. Um, so there's that,
Right.
and then we fast forward to this main event, and WWE likes to do this new thing that they've been doing for like a year, where they'll do things where sometimes they'll cut to full commercial, and sometimes they'll cut to commercial. But while cutting to commercial, they'll put like the match in like the top left of the screen, and then air the commercial on like the right side of the screen.
Right.
They aired the Greatest Royal Rumble pay per view ad like during this match, and a lot of people kind of had uh, I guess reservations about it because basically you're airing an ad about a show where no women are allowed during the main event women's match. It just wasn't a good look, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it wasn't like after the match or like before. It was while the match was happening. It's the main event of the show, and you're airing this ad. It just did not look good. Now, of course, I know WWE doesn't care because they're getting tons of money from this deal. So much money where obviously it's probably going to be a second WrestleMania with how much pyro they're about to do. Um, which, for those of you who don't know, WWE has recently been on budget cuts over the past 2 years. So, if you watched wrestling years ago and so used to pyro being in every show, it's no longer the case. Pyro is now usually only reserved for big things, which is usually only WrestleMania, and that's it now. So the fact that there's going to be pyro at this Greatest Saudi Arabia show shows you how big it's going to be and probably how much of a check that the country cashed for Vince. So, or for Mr. McMahon, I should say. So, we're just gonna have to see how that goes. So, moving over to SmackDown, which focused less on the Greatest Royal Rumble and more on Backlash, which is the following Sunday. Not the Sunday after Friday, but like the following week Sunday, which is the actual pay per view that WWE's been building to after WrestleMania. Big Cass interrupted Miz TV that was scheduled to have Daniel Bryan as a guest and basically cut a fantastic promo, basically saying that everyone cares about Daniel Bryan, Daniel Bryan, Daniel Bryan. Everybody cared about Daniel Bryan when he said that he had, was coming back from injury after being gone for 3 years, but nobody cared about Cass when he recovered from his ACL surgery, being gone for several months. And so he wants to send Daniel Bryan back into oblivion. Now, I'm kind of indifferent about this. I just don't want Daniel Bryan to fall back down the card. If you want to have him in a feud with Cass, fine, but it just can't be over a few months. Everyone knows that we want Daniel Bryan and The Miz to happen because we've been waiting on it for years. They've built on it for years while Daniel Bryan was retired. So, we'll see what this Cass match leads to. I like the intricate storylines, how they're both telling the story of Daniel Bryan's new rivalry with Cass, as well as his old rivalry with Miz, proving that you can indeed tell multiple storylines at a time, which for some reason Raw doesn't know how to do. So we'll see how that continues to move forward after next Sunday. And then the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce defeated Asuka and Becky Lynch after rolling up Becky Lynch. Meh. Don't really care about that match. Um, Jimmy Uso defeated Rowan, who is now just being called Rowan instead of Eric Rowan. I guess because since their new gimmick is the Bludgeon Brothers, just gonna go with first names or last names or whatever, so that way it sounds like they're brothers. After a distraction from Naomi, Jimmy's wife, uh, basically, oh no, Jay's wife. I think it's Jay's wife. Jay's wife. Yeah, after Jay's wife came down to distract the Bludgeon Brothers, Jimmy won on a roll up. So that was it. And then Carmella and Charlotte Flair, we're going to have a contract signing for their rematch at Backlash after Carmella won the women's title 2 weeks ago. Now, if you are a wrestling fan, you know that contract signings never end without any type of physical altercation. So what happens here? Carmella gloats. Charlotte signs the contract, and then Carmella keeps gloating. So Charlotte just says "F it" and bashes Carmella's head onto the table, and then flips the table, and then walks off. And it was great. I loved it. It was great. Um, so moving on, Shelton Benjamin defeats Randy Orton after a distraction from Sunil Singh. Uh, Randy Orton is kind of stuck in this limbo spot where I just don't care about him, but like he's still good. So he's good. I just don't care about his current storyline. So it is what it is. And then in the main event, AJ Styles reunited with his old Bullet Club members. Although you can't say Bullet Club in WWE, so it's just the club for a six-man tag team match with against Shinsuke Nakamura, Rusev Day, and Aiden English. So this match was okay. It was fun. Um, I will say Shinsuke, Rusev, and Aiden did win the match. After I should say um, Shinsuke tagged himself in while Gallows was beating up, I believe, Aiden English, and then landed a Kinshasa on Gallows to finish him off. And then as soon as the match ended, AJ Styles came in and began beating down on Nakamura. But then all of a sudden, this recurring theme that I'm in love with, Shinsuke Nakamura hit another low blow. Shinsuke has been hitting low blows on AJ Styles since WrestleMania when he turned heel, and it's great. The faces that he makes, the length that he kind of leaves his forearm up there just to kind of show you how much pain AJ Styles is in is great. So AJ Styles falls, he's on the ground, he can barely move. While AJ can barely move, Shinsuke Nakamura gives his finisher to Carl Anderson while AJ watches. And that's kind of how the show goes off the air. So they have a rematch for the WWE title at Greatest Royal Rumble. And I feel that this could be the match that we wanted at WrestleMania. Now that we have a true heel-face dynamic, I really think they'll hopefully have time to work and really make something special happen on Friday. And now I won't be watching it live because I have class in the morning and then I'm going straight to work at the draft right afterwards, but I'll watch it later. If there's a few matches that I'm definitely excited for, it's going to be that match with Shinsuke and AJ Styles Part 2, as well as the four-way ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship between The Miz, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor and Seth Rollins. I think that's going to be a very fun match to watch as well.
So you like
So
Shinsuke being a heel?
I love Shinsuke giving ball shots every week. I think it's a great, hilarious part of the storyline. And so, by essence, yes, I do. I am so far enjoying Shinsuke Nakamura as the heel. I was unsure of how I was going to feel about it at first, but now I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully this was a shorter show. I still feel like it's not quite an hour and a half. Actually, we're just about around the hour mark, which is a lot better than our previous show. So, Kyle, do you have any last minute thoughts that you wanna get out before we wrap this one up?
Yep. Side note, Derek Fisher apparently proposed to what's her face, Gloria Govan, and do you know who that is?
I do not.
Matt Barnes' ex-wife. Yay!
Uh, ah, that's I'm I'm not gonna say anything about that. That's yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
I'm gonna
that
just
just
leave it
happened
at that.
today.
Yeah, I'm gonna just
Huh?
leave it at that. At that point, I have nothing to say on that.
I mean, hey, I guess he didn't learn his lesson after Matt Barnes beat him up,
Allegedly,
allegedly.
allegedly. But with that awkward note to end it, I think we're gonna call it a wrap. This show is gonna be just about a little over an hour, which is much better than the hour and a half that we did for the first show. I'm not sure where this is going to be posted just yet, but if you've made it through two shows with us, first of all, why are you here? um,
We've just been talking.
Second of all, thank you for taking the ride. Um,
We're gonna have better things. We're gonna be doing streaming for video games. We're gonna try to uh, do vlogs.
We're
So
definitely
we're gonna
gonna
have
do vlogs. For example, first vlog will probably be next week. I'm going to try to vlog what I can from experiences at the draft, and so once I take that film and edit it down, that'll probably be a vlog that'll be posted on our YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel now, Nights at the Stanley Table, on YouTube. Um, we won't quite make our social media plugs yet because we don't know who's going to be listening just yet. But once we start putting this out there, we'll start plugging our social media so we can get follows. But yeah, I will make that plug. Nights at the Stanley Table on YouTube. No videos up there now, but that's where the vlog is going to be posted. That's probably going to end up being where these podcasts are going to be posted as well. I have a friend of mine who's working on getting our official logo for the show up, and then what I will start doing is I'll start putting these podcasts over the logo so that way it'll be a video form and posting them. So, yeah, other than that, Kyle, anything else you got to say before we go off the air for today's show?
no, that's pretty much it. Just tune in, like, share, subscribe.
And I guess we will see you next time. That's all. That's a wrap.